Mindset: The New Psychology of Success by Dr. Carol Dweck. Imagine a 10-year-old boy sitting at a small desk in a classroom. A researcher has just handed him a puzzle, and it's tough. Really tough. He's grunting, sweating, wrestling with it, but he just can't crack the code. So what do you think happens next? Does he slump in his chair and mutter, "I'm no good at this"? Does he push it away in frustration? Here's what this kid actually did, and it's wild. He scooted his chair in closer, rubbed his hands together like he was about to dig into a feast, and with the biggest grin you've ever seen, he practically shouted, "I love a challenge." The researcher watching him was completely floored. She'd spent years studying how people handle failure. Some cope, some crumble, but she'd never seen someone who actually loved it. That researcher was a brilliant young psychologist named Dr. Carol Dweck, and that single moment ignited an obsession that would span 3 decades. She had to figure out what was going on in that little boy's head. What did he understand that most of us miss? What he knew, and what Dr. Dweck would go on to prove through groundbreaking research at Stanford, became the foundation of her best-selling book, Mindset. It's built around one beautifully simple idea that separates people who reach their potential from those who don't. It explains why some incredibly talented folks fade into obscurity, while others with humble beginnings end up changing the world. Here's my promise to you. By the time we're done today, you won't just understand this idea, you'll have a practical roadmap to harness it in your own life. This isn't just about acing tests or nailing free throws, though it'll definitely help with that. This is about fundamentally transforming how you see yourself and what you're capable of. It's about unlocking a braver, tougher, more fulfilled version of you. So let's dive into one of the most powerful concepts you'll ever come across. At the core of Dr. Dweck's work lies a simple discovery. Throughout her entire career, she's been fascinated by how people handle failure. After studying thousands of people, from young kids to Fortune 500 executives, she noticed they fell into 2 distinct camps, based on one fundamental belief. This belief had nothing to do with their actual talent or smarts. It was something deeper. It was their mindset. The first group operated with what she called the fixed mindset. This is the belief that your qualities are set in stone. You've got a certain amount of intelligence, a particular personality, a specific character, and that's it. Your mission in life becomes proving you've got plenty of these traits. Every situation, whether it's a test, a work presentation, or even a first date, turns into an evaluation. It keeps asking the same question: will I succeed or fail? Will I look smart or stupid? Will I be accepted or rejected? The second group saw things completely differently. They operated with what Dweck called the growth mindset. This is the belief that your basic qualities are things you can develop through effort. Sure, people start with different talents and abilities, but everyone can change and grow through practice and experience. For people with a growth mindset, the hand you're dealt is just your starting point, not your final destination. Now, this might sound like a minor distinction. Fixed versus growth. Big deal, right? Well, as Dweck's research powerfully demonstrates, this one simple belief creates 2 completely different realities. It transforms the meaning of success, the meaning of failure, and even the meaning of effort itself. It changes what you chase and what you consider winning. Let's step into these 2 worlds for a moment. Imagine you're having a terrible day. You walk into an important class, and the professor returns midterm papers. You got a C+. You're crushed. Later, you find a parking ticket on your windshield. Frustrated, you call your best friend to vent, but they're distracted and brush you off. What goes through your mind? How do you feel? When Dr. Dweck presented this scenario to people with a fixed mindset, their reactions were devastating. They saw these events as a direct judgment of their worth. They said things like, "I'd feel like a complete failure. I'm an idiot. I'm a loser. I'd feel worthless and dumb." Their thoughts about life turned dark. "My life is pathetic. Nothing good ever happens to me. Life is unfair and trying is pointless." And how would they handle it? They'd withdraw. "I'd stay in bed, get wasted, yell at someone, eat a ton of chocolate." The fixed mindset took a few bumps in the road and turned them into crushing defeat and paralysis. But when she gave the exact same story to people with a growth mindset, their reaction was night and day. They didn't enjoy the setbacks, obviously, but they didn't see them as a permanent label or final verdict. They saw them as problems to tackle. They said things like, "I need to study harder in class, be more careful where I park, and maybe check if my friend's okay." Or, "The C+ tells me I need to work harder in that class, but I've still got the rest of the semester to pull up my grade." Their focus wasn't on judgment, it was on action. They didn't feel like hiding or numbing out. They felt motivated to make a plan. They'd hit the books harder, pay the ticket, and sort things out with their friend. They were stressed, sure, but they were ready to face the challenges and keep moving. This simple difference in mindset changes everything. And it starts incredibly early. Dweck once offered 4-year-olds a choice: redo an easy jigsaw puzzle or try a harder one. The kids with the fixed mindset, even at that young age, picked the safe option. They wanted guaranteed success. As one told the researchers, "Smart kids don't do mistakes." But the kids with the growth mindset were genuinely confused by the question. Why would anyone want to do the same puzzle over and over? They jumped at the chance for a tougher challenge. As one little girl exclaimed, "I'm dying to figure them out." For the fixed mindset, success means proving you're smart. For the growth mindset, success means becoming smarter. This choice between proving and improving echoes throughout our entire lives. It determines whether we become what writer Michael Lewis calls learners or non-learners. And it explains why so many people labeled as naturals never actually reach their potential. In sports, we're obsessed with the idea of the natural, the person who is just born with it. But as this book reveals, this is one of the most dangerous myths out there. Take the story of Billy Beane. If you've seen the movie Moneyball, you know his name. As a high schooler, Beane was the definition of a natural. He was the top scorer on the basketball team, quarterback of the football team, and the best hitter on the baseball team. Scouts saw him as the next Babe Ruth. Everyone agreed he had everything. But Billy Beane had a fixed mindset. He believed his talent was innate, which meant he shouldn't ever struggle. He shouldn't ever fail. As one scout put it, Billy was of the opinion that he should never make an out. So the moment things went sideways in his professional career, he fell apart. Every failed at-bat became public humiliation, a verdict on his talent. He couldn't handle it. Because natural talent shouldn't need effort, he didn't work on his weaknesses. Because natural talent shouldn't need help, he never asked for it. The very idea of having flaws was terrifying. Billy Beane, the can't-miss kid, was trapped by his own talent. He never became the superstar everyone predicted. Now contrast his story with another natural who got cut from his high school varsity team, Michael Jordan. We look at Michael Jordan today and see physical perfection. We assume his greatness was inevitable, but it wasn't. When he got cut from that team, he was devastated. His mother told him to go back and discipline himself. And that's exactly what he did. he started showing up at the gym at 6 in the morning to practice before school. Throughout his entire career, even at the absolute peak of his fame, he was known as the hardest-working athlete in the game. He constantly worked on his weaknesses. His former coach called him a genius who constantly wants to upgrade his genius. Jordan understood what Billy Beane didn't. As he famously said, "The mental toughness and the heart are a lot stronger than some of the physical advantages you might have." This is the mindset of a champion. It's not about being flawless. It's not about being born superhuman. It's about what Jackie Joyner-Kersee, one of the greatest athletes ever, calls a love for the process. She said, "For me, the joy of athletics has never resided in winning. I derive just as much happiness from the process as from the results." She wasn't born a world beater. In her first track meets, she finished dead last, again and again. But she kept working, kept improving, and eventually became a legend. The growth mindset creates what Dweck and many of the athletes she profiles call character. Character is what lets you dig deep when things are going against you. It's what turns a setback into a comeback. Michael Jordan once said in a famous commercial, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times, I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed." You can bet that each time, he went right back to the gym and practiced that shot 100 more times. This same dynamic plays out just as powerfully in business. In the late 90s, the corporate world was obsessed with talent. The idea, pushed by powerful consulting firms, was that companies needed to find naturals in business and throw huge salaries at them. This was called the talent mindset. No company embraced this more than a fast-rising energy company called Enron. Enron worshipped talent. They recruited people with the fanciest degrees and paid them eye-watering salaries. They created a culture where everyone had to look and act extraordinarily talented at all times. They built, essentially, a company-wide fixed mindset. And we know what happens in a fixed mindset. People don't admit their weaknesses. They hide their mistakes. They'd rather lie than look flawed. And that's exactly what happened. The brilliant naturals at Enron couldn't admit when their grand ideas were failing. They couldn't self-correct. They couldn't ask for help. So they lied. They cooked the books, hid their losses, and created one of the most catastrophic corporate collapses in history. The talent mindset, which was supposed to be their secret weapon, was the very thing that destroyed them. So what do the great companies do? Researcher Jim Collins, in his famous book Good to Great, studied companies that made the leap from merely good to truly great and sustained it for years. He found that in every single case, they were led by a particular type of leader. These leaders weren't the larger-than-life, charismatic types who oozed ego. They were self-effacing, quiet, even shy people. But they had fierce resolve. And they shared two key traits. They constantly asked questions. And they had the ability to confront the most brutal facts of their reality head-on. In other words, they were growth mindset leaders. They weren't trying to prove they were geniuses. They were trying to learn. They surrounded themselves with the smartest people they could find. They looked squarely at their own mistakes, and they were obsessed with one question: how can we get better? Jack Welch, the legendary executive who transformed General Electric, learned this lesson the hard way. Early in his career, he was seen as arrogant and unable to take criticism. But he learned from his mistakes. A disastrous acquisition taught him that there was, quote, only a razor's edge between self-confidence and hubris. He came to believe that true self-confidence wasn't about titles or fancy suits. It was the courage to be open, to welcome change and new ideas regardless of their source. He started visiting factories and listening to frontline workers. He dismantled the elitist culture at GE and rewarded teamwork instead of just individual genius. He transformed the company from a judge-and-be-judged framework to a learn-and-help-learn framework. The same story unfolded when Lou Gerstner took over a dying IBM, a company drowning in its own elitism and internal warfare, much like Enron, and when Anne Mulcahy took over a near-bankrupt Xerox. They didn't show up as superheroes with all the answers. They showed up as learners. They listened, they confronted the brutal facts, and they built a culture of growth, development, and teamwork. They rooted out the fixed mindset. Perhaps nowhere are these two mindsets more consequential than in our relationships. When we approach relationships with a fixed mindset, we bring in a bunch of dangerous beliefs. We believe in the idea of a perfect match, the meant to be. We believe in instant, perfect, and perpetual compatibility. And this leads to two massive problems. First, it creates the belief that if you have to work at it, it wasn't meant to be. People with a fixed mindset expect everything good to happen automatically. If you're truly compatible, you should be able to read each other's minds. You should share all the same views. Communication shouldn't be necessary. You should just know. But as every single relationship expert will tell you, this is pure fantasy. All relationships require work. They require communication. They require dealing with differences. The belief that a good relationship should be effortless robs people of the very tools they need to make it last. The second problem is even worse. In the fixed mindset, problems signal deep character flaws. When conflict arises, the immediate reaction is to assign blame. Either, I'm flawed, or more likely, my partner is flawed. Once you see your partner as having a permanent negative trait, selfish, irresponsible, uncaring, you start feeling anger and contempt. And since the problem comes from a fixed trait, it can't be solved. So you become dissatisfied with the whole relationship. In one of her most powerful studies, Dr. Dweck asked people to describe a terrible rejection they'd experienced. Everyone, regardless of mindset, had a painful story, but their reactions were completely different. Those with the fixed mindset felt judged and permanently labeled by the rejection. Their number one goal was revenge. As one man put it, "She took my worth with her when she left. Not a day goes by, I don't think about how to make her pay." They were stuck in bitterness, unable to move forward. Those with the growth mindset, though deeply hurt, reacted differently. They didn't feel permanently branded. Their primary goal was to understand, forgive, and learn from the experience so they could have a better future. As one woman said, "He hurt me, but I had a whole life waiting for me, and I'll be damned if I was going to live it in the past." The growth mindset lets you see that you, your partner, and the relationship itself are all capable of growth and change. It transforms your partner from an adversary into a teammate. It transforms problems from catastrophes into opportunities to build deeper understanding and connection. So where do these mindsets come from? We're not born with them. We learn them. And they're taught to us, often unintentionally, by our parents, teachers, and coaches. This brings us to one of the most shocking discoveries in the book, the danger of praise. For decades, we've been told that to build our kids' confidence, we should praise their intelligence. "You're so smart. You're so talented. You're a natural." More than 80% of parents believe this is essential for fostering achievement. Dr. Dweck worried that this was actually teaching kids the fixed mindset. It was telling them that what we value is some innate, unchangeable quality. So she put it to the test. In a series of groundbreaking studies, she gave children a simple IQ test. They all did pretty well. Afterwards, some kids were praised for their ability. "Wow, that's a really good score. You must be smart at this. Others were praised for their process. Wow, that's a really good score. You must have worked really hard. The results were stunning and immediate. When given a choice for their next task, the kids praised for being smart, rejected a challenging new task they could learn from. They didn't want to do anything that might expose their flaws and call their new smart label into question. In contrast, 90% of the kids praised for effort wanted the harder task. They were eager to learn. Then all the kids were given very difficult problems on which they all performed poorly. The ability-praised kids were devastated. If success meant they were smart, then this struggle meant they were dumb. Their enjoyment plummeted. Their confidence vanished. The effort-praised kids, on the other hand, just figured the problems were harder, and they needed to apply more effort or try new strategies. They stayed engaged and optimistic. But the most devastating finding was what happened to their performance. After the difficult problems, the ability-praised kids' performance collapsed. Even when they were given easier problems again, they'd lost faith in themselves. The effort-praised kids' performance got better and better. They'd used the challenge to sharpen their skills. Praising intelligence had effectively lowered their IQs, and praising effort had raised them. Even more alarming, when the kids were asked to write a letter to a student in another school and report their scores, almost 40% of the ability-praised kids lied, inflating their scores. In the fixed mindset, imperfection is shameful, so they simply lied it away. Praising them for being smart had turned ordinary kids into liars. The message is crystal clear. When we praise the process, effort, strategy, focus, perseverance, we create a growth mindset. We create kids who love challenges, who bounce back from setbacks, and who become better, more honest learners. The same principles apply to great teachers. The best teachers, from Marva Collins turning around a classroom of unteachable inner-city kids, to Dorothy DeLay mentoring the world's greatest violinists at Juilliard, all share a core belief. They believe in the growth of intellect and talent, and they're fascinated by the process of learning. They set high standards, but they create a nurturing atmosphere of trust, not judgment. They don't just say, "You can do it." They say, "Here are the tools and strategies to help you get there." As one of Marva Collins's students, who had been written off by the school system, explained why he loved her demanding classroom, "It's so hard here. That's why I like it, because it makes your brains bigger." So can we change our mindset? The answer is absolutely yes. Beliefs are just that, beliefs. They're in our minds, and we can change our minds. The journey to a growth mindset isn't like flipping a switch. It's more like embarking on a voyage. The old beliefs don't just vanish. Instead, new beliefs take their place alongside the old ones, and as they get stronger, they give you a different way to think, feel, and act. The first step, surprisingly, is to embrace your fixed mindset. Accept that we're all a mixture of both. There's no shame in it. The second step is to become aware of your fixed mindset triggers. When does that voice of judgment show up? Is it when you take on a new challenge? When you struggle or fail? When you meet someone who's better at something than you? The third step is to give your fixed mindset persona a name. You can call it Gertrude, or Z, or Dale Denton the stoner from Pineapple Express, as some of Dweck's students did. Giving it a name separates it from you. It's not you, it's just your fixed mindset persona acting up. You can observe it, and even have a conversation with it. Which brings us to the fourth step, educate your persona. When it shows up and warns you not to take a risk, you can thank it for its concern, but explain why you want to take this step anyway. Ask it to come along for the ride. When you have a setback and it starts telling you you're a failure, you can acknowledge its perspective. Then talk to it about how you plan to learn from the setback and move forward. This journey is about shifting from a framework of judgment to a framework of growth. It's a commitment to learning, one that requires time, effort, and support. But as you move along this path, you'll find your life becoming richer. You become more alive, more courageous, and more open. As we wrap up our journey through mindset, I keep coming back to that one simple, powerful idea, the belief that you can grow. It seems almost too simple to be true, and yet, as Dr. Dweck's research so beautifully shows, it's the invisible engine that drives human potential. What strikes me most about this book is how it completely reframes the conversation about success. For so long, we've been a culture that worships talent. We celebrate the natural, the prodigy, the overnight success. We look at a Michael Jordan or a Mozart and see a different species, someone touched by the gods. This book pulls back the curtain on that myth. It shows us that greatness isn't a gift you're given, it's a prize you earn. It's earned through thousands of hours of practice, through relentless self-critique, through the courage to face your weaknesses and turn them into strengths. The heroes of this book aren't the ones who were born the best. They're the ones who fell in love with the process of becoming the best. This is, I think, one of the most hopeful and democratic ideas in all of psychology. It means your potential isn't a fixed number written in your DNA. It's a starting point, and what happens next is largely up to you. It frees you from the tyranny of having to be smart or talented all the time. It gives you permission to be a work in progress. It gives you permission to struggle, to fail, and to learn. The book also serves as a powerful warning. The messages we send ourselves and others carry incredible weight. The simple act of praising a child for being smart can inadvertently set them on a path of fragility and fear. It's a stunning reminder that our words shape worlds. And with that knowledge comes real responsibility. If you're ready to start putting these ideas into practice, here are a few simple actions you can take today. First, just listen. For the next 24 hours, pay attention to the voice in your head. When you face a challenge, what does it say? Does it judge you, or does it coach you? Don't try to change it yet. Just become aware of your own mindset triggers. Second, reframe one piece of praise. The next time you want to compliment a friend, family member, or even yourself, consciously shift from praising the trait to praising the process. Instead of, "You're brilliant," try, "I was really impressed with how you worked through that problem step by step." Watch what happens. And third, take on a small, manageable challenge. Something you've told yourself you're just not good at. It could be trying to draw something for 10 minutes, learning a few chords on a guitar, or attempting a tricky recipe. As you do it, focus entirely on the process. Feel your brain making new connections. Remind yourself that you're not being tested, you're growing. Ultimately, the message of mindset isn't just about achieving more. It's about living a richer, more vibrant, and more courageous life. It's about understanding that the path to fulfillment isn't found in proving you're enough, but in the joy of becoming more than you were yesterday. That was the book summary of Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Dr. Carol Dweck. We've certainly touched on the major themes today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The real adventure begins when you decide to take the journey yourself. The true power of this book lies in the stories, the details, and the quiet moments of self-reflection it inspires. If you've felt a spark of recognition in anything we've discussed, a glimpse of your own fixed mindset persona, or a hope for a more growth-oriented life, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just an act of learning. It's an investment in the person you have the potential to become. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if this journey through mindset has been valuable to you, please take a moment to like this summary and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Thank you for joining me, and let's keep growing together.